Good afternoon, folks. Hope this finds you well. Right, this is going to be a pickups video, showing some recent pickups and some that go back a few months actually. So without further ado, there's a few to show. Let's get on with it. Now, Mr. Baggy Hi-Fi in his last video showed some BBC session related albums. So where Mr. Baggy Hi-Fi goes, I follow. So let's start off with this one. British rock at the BBC 1967 to 1973. This is an unofficial album on the Maida Vale label. There in the inner gatefold, you see all the acts that are contained on this album. Now, these are all from obviously from BBC radio sessions, a lot of which made it onto the transcription albums that the Beeb used to send out. On here you get acts like Eric Burdon and the Animals, Jeff Beck, Procol Harum, Traffic, Crazy World of Arthur Brown, Fairport Convention, The Faces, Mott the Hoople, The Strawbs. You get Status Quo doing the Everly's The Price of Love. You get CCS and their version of Whole Lot of Love. Sweet doing Paperback Writer, of all things. Slade doing Joplin's Move Over. And Babe Ruth doing Zappa's King Kong. This is a really good album. The quality of the recordings, as per a lot of the BBC sessions, is superb. And related to this, in the same series, we have this one, Progressive Rock, British Progressive Rock at the BBC, 1968 to 1971. I like the covers on these albums. I've got a feeling these are Rodney Matthews paintings, or at least in his style. As with the other album, you have all the acts inside. Now this features a lot more of the more lesser known acts, such as Junior's Eyes, Mandrake Paddle Steamer, Windmill, Sweet Marriage, Aura, Galliard, who else? Griffin, we have Sweet Marriage, Walrus, Sunburst, and Fields, among others. This is there's a series of these albums. Also in the series is the British Psychedelic Rock at the BBC, 1967 to 69. British Hard and Heavy Rock, 68 to 71. And 2 volumes of the New Wave of British Heavy Metal at the BBC. Volume 1, 1979 to 1980, and 1980 to 1982 for Volume 2. All of these are double albums. Highly recommended. Right.
You're tuned to the most fabulous live pub show in the world, Top of the Pops.
Some of them came and played.
BBC sessions. The next one is a 10-inch record. Bear with me, get it out of its cover. And this is the Edgar Broughton Band with the Revolt. This is on the London Calling label, a label which specialises in a lot of these radio shows and radio sessions. They can be a bit iffy in quality sometimes, but this one is superb. Comes on nice purple vinyl. As I said, the recording quality is superb. I think two of the tracks of the 6 tracks are from the BBC. The others are radio sessions, but it doesn't specify where they're from. This features the great heavy sort of freak blues rock of the Broughtons, with Edgar's sort of Beefheart-like vocals to the fore. This is excellent. Next up, another compilation, and this is La Discothèque Psychedelique, a French compilation where all the acts are from all over Europe. As it says, 17 European folky, funky and pop psych tunes from the late 60s and early 70s. Some great stuff on this. Acts like Pawn Shop, Katie Kovacs and Juventus, Spencer Mack, Tony Hendrick, W. Francois Wertheimer, and there's even there's 2 or 3 acts that I've actually even heard of, such as The Ghost, Birth Control, who were the sort of the German krautrock band, and Nuova Idea, an Italian psych prog band. This is, like I said, some excellent psych come proto prog tracks. Highly recommended. This is volume 1. There's a second volume which I'll have to try and get a hold of. But there's not a bad track on this.
When I was a young boy, long time ago, I played in the streets of the town. The sounds of laughter ringing in my ears, the sounds of laughter, sometimes tears, and the sound of the old Iron Man, the sound of the old Iron Man.
Next up we have some albums that come from recommendations made by other people to me. The first one here is probably one of my favourite albums so far of the year, actually. I love this album. A friend visited from Newcastle, my friend Mark, and he recommended these a lot highly. And that same weekend, John Bellamy did a video which he featured this album on. So I had, with those two recommendations in mind, I had to go and purchase it. And this is Birth and their first album, Born. This is from this year, I think. Beautiful cover, heavy stock. Comes in nice coloured vinyl. Now, the main guy in Birth is Brian Ellis, who's the guitarist and electric pianist and percussionist for the band. Also, you have Conor Riley on keyboards, Trevor Mast on bass, and Paul Marone on drums. Now, Brian Ellis and Conor Riley were in the American prog band Astra, who did a couple of albums. Must have been 10 or more years ago, I think. Can't remember exactly when, probably about 2010. Two excellent albums, of which I've only got the second. But Brian Ellis, he's also in the band Psychomagia, along with Trevor Mast, the bassist, and Paul Marone, the drummer. And they did a superb album on the El Paraiso label back in 2013. Ellis has also done other albums on the El Paraiso label. The album At Dusk with Brian Granger that was released in 2015, and the Escondido sessions with his own group in 2015, the Brian Ellis group. And they also featured Trevor Mast and Paul Marone as well. And he also did an album with Ellis, the Ellis Monk sessions with Jonas Monk of the band Kausasui, whose label El Paraiso is. I'd recommend all of those albums. They're all superb. But this is superb, sort of 70s retro prog, but with a modern bent. Like I say, probably one of the best albums I've heard this year. And talking of one of the best albums I've heard this year, this is up there with the Birth album as one of my favourites. And this is Burials by Fuzzy Lights. Now this is another one that my friend Mark recommended to me. I'd heard the name Fuzzy Lights, but I never listened to them at all. This is their fourth and latest album from 2021. They're a folk rock band, a psych folk band, but with sort of post-rock leanings. You get a bit of that sort of Godspeed vibe about them. But the singer, Rachel Watkins, has a superb English folk voice. And I think these are superb. They've got, like I said, this is their fourth album. I think the first one only came on CD. I've ordered the second and third because I was so impressed with this. Check out the needle drop I'm going to do, and you'll hear what they're like. Like I say, one of the best albums of the year for me again. And talking of recommendations, this next one was shown by Petri Hakala. Hope I've said your name right, Petri. He was a subscriber to me and regular commenter. Check out his channel. He's got great taste in music. He's got a superb selection of Italian prog, a lot of neo-psych and neo-kraut albums, and a lot of great world music as well. Petri showed this album, I think, on one of his videos. This is Florette Silva by Kay Hoffman. Now, Kay, it seems, was a minimalist composer, an American minimalist composer. She went over to Italy in the mid-70s and started work with the Italian avant-prog band Piero Lunaire. And she made this album with some of the members of Piero Lunaire. This is sort of medieval folk rock, with the lyrics based on the Carmina Burana. The source material, obviously, for Karloff's Carmina Burana suite, which is probably my favourite piece of classical music. Absolutely superb album. I'm not sure if she ever did anything after that. I need to have a look her up and see if she has. This was done in, I think, 1977 or 78. Yeah, I think it was 78 this came out. Highly recommend it, especially if you like medieval music and if you're a fan of Karloff's Carmina Burana. And finally, in the recommendations pile, this album was recommended to me by a great friend from my Manchester days, Siobhan. She's a dance teacher, taught belly dancing among other things, and she pointed me in the. What did I say, Siobhan? Sean! You idiot, guys. My mind's going. Anyway, this is the band Satellites. They're from Tel Aviv, and they play Anatolian rock to vintage psych, along with spacey grooves. Great Turkish dance music. A lot of the music, I think, is either directly from the Turkish tradition or is written in that style. Absolutely wonderful. If you like Anatolian music, you're going to love this. And this is on the Batov Records label. Moving on, there's still a few to show. Obviously, this wouldn't be one of my videos if there wasn't some Scandi prog. And here we have the first album by the Norwegian band Soft Fog, fog spelt with a double F. Self-titled album. Beautiful artwork on the album. Obviously, owes a big debt to Roger Dean. Now, Soft Fog were a quartet who got together originally, I think, in 2016 for a one-off festival gig, but didn't get an album out until this year. Now this is guitar driven prog with jazz fusion elements, strong jazz fusion elements. As it's guitar driven, the main guy is Tom Haslund, who is a guitarist and the composer of all four pieces that this album comprises of. Haslund and I think the drummer Alex Skalstad are from the Norwegian jazz fusion band Krokofant, who I don't own anything by actually, but what I've heard is very good. Again, like I said, heavy prog fusion music, totally instrumental. Looking forward to seeing what they do next. Staying in Norway, we have two albums by the same artist. Just bear with it while I take these out of their covers so that you don't get the glare. These two albums are by Alvin Zatar. And this is Heliotropiska Reise. And the other album is, oh God, Fangarma Glenom Tidogrom. Probably butchered that. Sorry, Richard. Now, this is basically the work of this one guy who goes by the name of Krisla. And Krisla is part of the great Norwegian prog band Tusmorka, who I really like, and I've got 4 or 5 of their albums now. Now these owe a big debt to, I think, to Tangerine Dream. They're almost like his homage to the Tangs. In fact, one of the tracks on this album is called Ricochet, which is Norwegian for ricochet. Obviously, that's the title of a Tangerine Dream album. So they're very much in that Berlin School type of electronic music. The sequences, though, sound a bit different, used differently, sound a bit more modern to my ears anyway, but highly recommend these. He's done, prior to the to this album, which I think was his third album, or well, his first album on vinyl. He'd done about 4 albums on cassette prior to this. He's done another couple of albums since these two, and another couple of cassettes as well. Definitely want to try and get the other 2 vinyl albums. As you know, I like my electronic music, and particularly the Kosmische German style of electronic music. Highly recommended. And from Norway, we go to the Netherlands, and we have the album Candy Clouds by Hans Dulfer and Ritmo Natural. Hans Dulfer was, I think, a famous Dutch saxophonist in the late 60s or the 70s anyway, of Dutch jazz. And he joined together with the band Ritmo Natural for this album of jazz rock, jazz fusion. Superb stuff. Really enjoyed this one. You can tell it's quite a large band. Couple of sax players, guitar, piano, 2 bassists, a couple of conga drums and timbales, or 3 timbales players, and a proper drummer. So you obviously get a bit of that sort of Latin feel with the timbales. Wonderful stuff. This was their second album from 1970, which was on the Catfish label. Their first album actually featured, which was in 1970 as well, featured Jan Akkerman on one of the tracks at least. I'm definitely going to have to try and find that, being a big Focus and Jan Akkerman fan. But if you like early 70s jazz fusion, I'd highly recommend searching this one out. And moving from the Netherlands, sorry, I think we're sticking in the Netherlands for this one. This is that one I found on Discogs. Never heard of the band before. The band are Elefant. This is their live release concert, the only album they ever did. Elefant are a Dutch duo of Ernst Kesting, who plays organ, and along with some electronics, and Cies de Visa on drums. So it's just a organ and drums duo, playing highly improvisational and experimental music. Just 2 long tracks, one per side, performed live. Originally this album was released in only 150 copies in aid of a drug rehabilitation charity. This reissue is on the nicely named Pig Shit label. I think is limited to 500 copies. This is wonderful stuff, really is. It sounds more like it should have come out of Germany in the 70s, out of the krautrock scene. This was from 1972, I don't think I said that. Wonderful stuff. Only thing they ever did, it seems, unfortunately. I wish they'd done more. I love this one. I'd say just organ and drums. The organ in places sounds very much like that of Mike Ratledge when Soft Machine played live. Excellent. last couple. Back in the 90s, along with a lot of great prog that was coming out of Scandinavia and the Nordic countries, there was also some great folk rock, electric folk music. And my favourite at the time were the Swedish band Hedningarna, which means the heathens, I think, in English. And this is their third album, Tre, from 1994. I said Swedish, but of the 5 members, the 3 main musicians are Swedish, the 2 vocalists are Finnish, and this is very much Nordic traditional music, along with pieces written by the band in that format. Very much updated to include the use of samples and programming. I absolutely adored this band when they were around. That's the band, if you can see. One of the best electric folk bands of the 90s. This, like I say, is their third album. They've done about 3 or 4 after that. I think the last one was in 2018. I don't know the last couple, unfortunately. I've got most of the others. Apart from the first, which originally came out on vinyl, this is the only one that's been re-released on vinyl. This is on Silence. It was re-released in 2020. It's absolutely superb electric folk music with that sort of ancient Nordic, paganistic almost feel to it, to a lot of the music. I really hope they go about re-releasing some of the other albums. That would be great. And some of the other great electric folk music that came out of Scandinavia in the 90s as well. That would be superb. And finally, we move to my old home country, Italy. And we have this album by Ilaria Graziano and Francesco Forni, From Bedlam to Lenane. Now, they are, as you can see, a Italian duo who play blues, folk, Mediterranean and Neapolitan folk songs, and they also write their own material. Ilaria is on vocals and I think ukulele, and the rest of the instrumentation, mostly string instruments, guitars, mandolin, that sort of thing, and vocals are done by Francesco. On this album, which I think was from 2012. This is their second album. They sing songs in, obviously in Italian, but also in Spanish, French and English. And the great thing about this is the sound is quite minimalistic. It's just vocals and guitar or mandolin or whatever. There's no massive production and loads of other instruments, which enhances the songs greatly. I'd never heard of them before. I saw this on the Discog sellers lists and I thought it looked interesting. I would highly recommend this duo. They've done a third album in 2018. I'm going to have to try and get hold of that. Ilaria's got a superb voice. Like I say, the material is mainly sort of all blues from you get a feel of Mexicalis, that type of music. You get Latin tangos and, like I say, Neapolitan songs. There's only one track which is very sort of fairly more modern in style, which I wasn't that keen of, but the rest of it is excellent.
Come fresco il vento che respiro, camminando sopra un filo, sospeso nell'aria. In questa posizione precaria assomiglio più alla vita e alla mia felicità. Non opporre alcuna resistenza è la legge che permette di restare in equilibrio. Scivolando un piede dopo l'altro sono caduta sull'asfalto e ho sentito il mio dolore. Siamo nella stessa strada. Sotto le mie scarpe ci sono le spine mentre tu calpesti pietre di diamanti. Sono un passo indietro e stringo serpenti fra i denti.
Right, hope I haven't taken up too much of your time with that. I've got another box and a half at least of other stuff that I've picked up that I need to show sometime. So I hope you're all well, like I said before. Take care and I hope to see you soon. Bye.